Have you ever thought about the significance of the 10 plagues of Egypt? Today we are covering the 10th and final plague, which is the death of the firstborn. And this one has a bit of a twist because this one addresses Pharaoh himself. And you might ask, like I did, why Pharaoh? Because Pharaoh was actually believed to be a god manifest in the flesh. He was actually the most worshipped god in Egypt. I mentioned in the last one how Ra was the second most worshipped god and how many of the pharaohs believed that they were descendants of Ra. And this is why Pharaoh was the most worshipped, because they believed him to be a son of Ra himself manifest in the flesh. And they believed that the pharaoh's primary responsibility was to act essentially as a mediator between humans and the gods, and that Pharaoh was supposed to maintain the order on earth and make sure that humans were acting in a way that was pleasing to the pantheon of Egyptian gods. So as God has progressed through the various plagues, addressing all of the various gods of the Egyptian pantheon, he now comes to this place where he is looking directly at Pharaoh and coming directly after Pharaoh. And the Bible tells us that the firstborn of every single household, from Pharaoh all the way down to the least of them, children and flocks, is to die that night, that the death angel will pass over. And the only exception is that if there was blood of a lamb found on a doorpost. Now, this is where the distinction gets a little bit different from the previous ones, because instead of giving Israel automatic exemption, God now asks them to be active in their exemption from this plague. And of course, this is where the order to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost comes from. And it was only those of Israel who had the blood of the lamb. And even if Israel didn't do it, they would lose their firstborn. So God makes even a finer distinction than the previous plagues by showing that it's not just automatic, but that he also can give specific commands and that they will always come to pass. So he ultimately dethrones Pharaoh as any sort of god or any sort of keeper of order or of life, and shows himself to be the only true keeper of life and order.